Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Fantasy Zone and welcome to Sega News Bits Live. I'm your host, Barry, and it's so official. I'm just sitting in my basement talking this past week's Sega news. And I also want to talk about Sonic's Feet because I am an expert in Sonic's Feet. I was actually featured, George and myself, who helps run Sega Bits alongside me. We were featured on a Sci-Fi Channel podcast to talk about the release of the Sonic movie, and they talked to us about Sonic's Feet, and I had a lot to tell them. And they were surprised, and it's like, you don't call on the experts and then go, oh my God, how do you know so much? Just like, of course I know about Sonic's Feet. So let's hit the ground running and talk about Sonic's Feet right after this short preview of our next Sega Talk podcast episode, which is going to be Shenmue 2. It's dropping this weekend, but I just had this funny bit from the beginning that I wanted to share. So let's check it out. Episode is Shenmue 2, and I also want to mention, George, I didn't run this past you, but we do have a sponsor for this episode. I just want to plug them. George, do you ever need like cat food or batteries or like cassette tapes?
Always.
But do you like convenience stores that don't sell food that you can actually eat?
Yes. Well, it's so inconvenient to have food.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, tomato convenience stores are the place to go if you need cat food, batteries. You can look at other things, but you cannot buy it. So like toilet paper, food, you can look at it, it's there, but not for sale. Really cool place. So check them out. I think they existed in the 80s in Japan. I don't think they're around anymore. But they paid us a hefty sum to promote themselves on this episode.
Gotta edit the tomato theme song right here while you're saying this. Yeah, like...
All right, enough with the laughs. So you can look forward to that. That's going to be dropping. Originally it was going to be dropping today, but the episode was released to Patreon a little late, so we always like to give them a good amount of exclusivity time, so you can expect that to drop probably on Sunday. Shenmue 2 is going to be dropping same day, I believe, as the animation, and it will also be our 12th anniversary as a website. Sega Bits is turning 12 on Sunday, and I believe Shenmue is on Saturday. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But let's talk about Sonic's Feet. So there's always like weird stuff about Sonic that is uncovered that's been in front of our eyes the whole time. And one of my favorites over the past few years was Sonic's sneezing. So, and what I find really funny is that when this stuff's brought up, there's some Twitter accounts who are like, it's so obvious. I'm like, no, not everyone knows about Sonic having ESP, and when he sneezes, it's like a spider sense that trouble is near. Like, that's actual Sonic canon. It's insane. But this bit is something I have not known about until just recently. It kind of came back up, but it was something that was talked about, I believe, around last year as well. So Naoto Oshima, designer of Sonic, was asked, what are these things? Are these his socks? Are they a part of his shoes? And he replied with, it's boots. It is boots. Let me uncover, because it's just, I love it. It's boots. And yeah, I mean, it is boots. So the idea is that Sonic has these long boots, and then he folds them down. And you kind of see that with Amy Rose, modern Amy Rose. I have a bit of fan art here that you can see. So let me see if I can... now we're looking at some dirty stuff online. But you see it here. So yeah, Sonic is kind of like wearing Amy's boots. You see Amy's boots kind of folded down a little bit. You fold them down again, you basically have Sonic shoes. And so that was blowing a lot of people's minds, but it makes sense because in interviews, Naoto Oshima would say that he was inspired by Santa Claus and Michael Jackson. And I think a lot of people were like, Santa, I guess the red and white, but it's a little more than that. It's these boots that are folded down, and then they make these almost seemingly socks. And it came up again because I noticed, and other people did too, that Knuckles, if this same thing applies to Knuckles, does that mean he's wearing boots and it's folded down and it's green inside? I mean, you look at these renders and it just looks like he's wearing like, I don't know, like plumbing parts, like plastic around. I mean, as much as I love the renders, this is pretty weak. Like Knuckles' socks are basically like a basic shape. But when you look at the Sonic movie boots now, holy crap. So he's wearing Timberlands, and these are folded down boots. Like very, very clearly, the green is the inside of the boot. And I've seen people sharing images with me when I posted this out saying, oh yeah, look, see? And I was like, well, there's more to it than that. Because if you look at here, it's actually a type of boot called fold down. And so, yeah, Knuckles most definitely is folding them boots. Now, what's interesting is that I think in the Sonic movie, Sonic's shoes are shoes and his socks are socks. So there are canons in which the folded down boots do not exist, such as Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, their socks. The Saturday morning one, their socks. In fact, my Sonic foot, I almost said fetish. It's not a fetish. It's an expertise. Comes from a children's book called Sonic's Shoes Blues, where you can very clearly see Sonic wearing socks, and you also see his feet, and he has 3 toes. Very strange. But yeah, so there you have it. Sonic is wearing boots, not in every canon, though, as I mentioned. In the movie canon, he is wearing shoes with socks. However, Knuckles is folding them down. So there you go. Meme. Oh, and then also there's this. Let me uncover them. So as you can see here, Dreams Come True, who did music for Sonic 1 and 2, they were in this promotional art recently, and you can see right there, they are wearing Sonic shoe boots, but they did not fold them down, so they look like Amy Rose's boots. Interesting, right? I don't know. I think it is. Anyway, maybe Sonic Frontiers will see him finally reveal. He'll fold them up. It'll be pretty awesome. Let's talk about the past week of news. In fact, it's been more than a week because we've been on a little... We've been pretty busy at the site. We've been putting out Sega Talk episodes. We've been putting out Swing and Report show lives. In fact, we had one just recently with Sonic Yoda. I'll plug that in a little bit. And then we have one coming up, which I'll plug right now. Next week, I'm going to be doing a Sega printer demo live on the internet. And it's a physical piece of hardware. You can hook it up to anything, but it's made for like the Saturn or the Sega Pico. And it does screen grabs. It physically freezes your screen and takes a printout. It's pretty cool tech. I've never used it, so I'm probably going to do a tiny test run before I record, just because I don't want to come online and have it not even start up. But I'm not going to do a test print because I want to see what happens with it live on the show. As far as news, yeah, there's a lot of bad news, folks. So the Sega Sonic Railway in Japan closed down after 7 years of service, which is just devastating for many. But it's a weird little thing that has been in existence for some time, and the fact that it's gone is, I guess, upsetting to some. Hey, look at that. Some content we put out there. So as you can see, we did a Gun Valkyrie episode. You can watch and listen to that. There is a rumored Judgment TV series in the works, which is going to star the face of Judgment. I have to wonder if this is a little behind-the-scenes negotiating. Maybe they're saying, hey, we will get you guys a TV show, throw a little extra money your way in exchange for letting us release these to PC. You know, it might be a little bargaining, because it is interesting that Sega appears still on board with the actor, his likeness, even though that was apparently holding up PC releases of the game. So it looks like good news for the Judgment franchise. As far as Yakuza, some bad news, or some strange news. I don't know. The way it was broken was interesting to me. So the Yakuza and Judgment series localization producer, Scott Strichhart, has stepped down. And he was saying on social media, like, he's not leaving the company, but he's stepping down from the role. Him and his boss has decided it was time. It all seemed very strange, though, because it did not seem like a positive, like, this is my decision, I'm really looking forward to it. It was more like, my bosses and I decided it's time I step down. And it's like, okay, I mean, is everything going all right there? So checking out the story here, yeah, he was the head of localization. He was put in charge, as you can see, from Yakuza 0, Kiwami, Kiwami 2, 6, 7, Judgment, and Lost Judgment. And so they're really the ones who were crafting these Yakuza games and bringing them to American audiences and really making their mark. Like, I honestly think Yakuza would not have been the success it was without this team. And members of the team, localization team, are still working on it, but it looks like Scott will no longer be heading it up. I'm not exactly sure why, but it is what it is. Speaking of Sega staff and shuffling around, if you support us on Patreon, there is a exclusive podcast that I put up there that will never go public. Well, maybe it is. Who knows? You might find it. And it's with Aaron Weber. It's something we did 10 years ago that was never published. We still don't know why I guess it was because we didn't go through the proper channels of submitting questions beforehand. And so they were Sega as a whole were kind of upset with us, and they told us not to publish it. But you know what? Enough people have left, and there's nothing criminal that was ever spoken, so it's up there. It's still a very interesting interview. We talk about remasters, re-releasing games, Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, talk a little bit about his time on the Sonic franchise, because at the time we recorded, Aaron was kind of in charge of Sega things in a broader level than just Sonic. Since then, he's gone to Sonic and Phantasy Star Online 2 now. Shenmue the animation is premiering February 5th, as we were discussing. Looking forward to that. A little thing I learned is that it's coming from Adult Swim and Crunchyroll. However, Adult Swim will have the English dub, Crunchyroll will have the Japanese dub. And if you don't have subscriptions or access to either one of those, but you do have a Xbox like Ultimate Pass, whatever they call it, their Game Pass, that's it, you have access to a 75-day free trial of Crunchyroll. So if you've never used Crunchyroll, it's for new subscribers. I jumped on that just a few days ago, so I can definitely experience Shenmue as it releases. And then I don't plan to renew it because I'm not a huge anime guy. But I am looking forward to Shenmue the animation, and you can expect it's not going to be on the night, but it'll be probably within the week of the premiere. George and I will do a live show discussing it. I don't think we're going to keep it up for every episode because that's going to be like 12 or 13 weeks of content. But I'm looking forward to that coming out. And let's see what else we have here. We have a new action figure is coming up. It's the Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown Akira Yuki action figure up for pre-order. Okay, so here's the thing. I collect action figures. I'm not going to say this is expensive as hell. It seems about on par with stuff I've seen. For example, it's... Here, I think I can reach him here. Ugh. All right, so I've got this, like, Godzilla action figure. This thing was quite expensive, super articulated. It had lots of hands and heads, just like this thing. Or actually, it came with one head, but it had lots of hands. So, you know, I think the price is comparable to one of those super expensive Godzilla action figures. But it looks very cool. There are also Golden Axe action figures out there that you can pick up. So, you know, no lack of figures. And as you can see, you can kind of see a little bit behind me. There's tons of Sonic action figures coming out. So, yeah, if you like Sega, if you like action figures, we are kind of in the glory days of that, I guess, or the heyday. I don't know. Back to some bad news, sad news, good news. I don't know. Toshihiro Nagoshi, he left Sega some time ago, and he now has announced Nagoshi Studio. And this was leaked, so we newsed this before it became public. But yeah, he has started his own development studio under his new owner, NetEase. So, I mean, I'm expecting good things, but I don't really know what to expect, because if they're going to just make moody action, comedy, thriller set in modern day Japan games that look like Yakuza, it's going to be like, man, does this guy have any other good ideas? Which leads me to believe we're going to be seeing original content that does not really feel like it's just a retread of the Yakuza franchise. I could be wrong, but I mean, this is the guy that also gave us Monkey Ball and Binary Domain and some really awesome racing games. So I suspect from the logo it's going to be more filmic games, but probably not things set in Japan dealing with the underworld or lawyers, you know. But exciting things are to come from him. It's a shame he left Sega. But maybe this is so he can get out of the administrative role and more back into a creative developer role, but with a hefty paycheck. Because I have to imagine he's being paid more than Sega was giving him. We also have a brand new Sega Talk up covering Illbleed, the game that now costs like $400. It's insane. I did want to add a little addendum onto that. So I mentioned in the podcast that the American release of Illbleed was from A1A as the publisher. It's actually AIA, and AIA is a company created by, oh man, and I'm already forgetting. It's not Majesco. It's man, why did I even bring this up if I can't pull the information from my head? Hey, that's what the internet's for. So what it is that it's this publisher that only published one game, and that was Illbleed, AIA. Illbleed to be published by AIA USA, which stands for Amusement Interface Associates. And what's interesting is that I believe it's Jaleco. Jaleco was the company that, yeah, here we go. So AIA is owned by Yoshiaki Kanazawa, who was a veteran of the coin-op industry and obviously had his connections to America as well, because he founded this company that only published one game, as I mentioned, Illbleed. And what was interesting is that they're located in Wilmette, Illinois, which is just north of Chicago by about maybe 20, 30 minutes, in this almost lakefront office, maybe a few blocks from the lake. But it's just kind of fascinating that this guy who, and as I mentioned, he, where's his biography here? Here we go. So it's Jaleco. Yep, Jaleco is the company that he owned and operated, and then he started AIA. So it's to me very interesting that this little horror game from this kind of obscure studio becomes the sole publishing effort from this company that's located just probably 30 minutes from where I'm recording this right now. So maybe once the weather warms up, I'll go out and I'll just film a video in front of a very boring office front and say, this is where Illbleed was here. Like, you got to imagine at least one copy of Illbleed was inside that building, which just kind of amuses me. So there you have it. Obscure news. This was very cool. So I have had the Xbox Nation debut issue for the longest time in my mitts, and it turns out it's never been scanned, it's never been released to the internet, and I've been pleaded by Jet Set Radio and Jet Set Radio Future fans to release the scans. I have not done that yet because I want to have them look nice. I tried photos, but I think I really have to lay it flat in the scanner, so that's going to take a little more time. But what I did do is I transcribed the entire interview that is inside from the producer Takayuki Kawago. And so it's a really fun interview. All the text is there. You can check it out on Segabits. It's the only place you're going to find it at the moment. And so, yeah, I want to do more content like that too, like posting classic interviews, but transcribe it so that it's preserved on the internet. Speaking of the headline for this show, Sega Arcades, let's start getting into that. So first off, Sega Amusements is still creating and releasing arcade games. And one of those games that's coming out very soon is Mission Impossible Arcade DX, and the cabinets are already shipping in America and Europe. So exciting stuff. So before we get into the bad news, remember, Sega Amusements is still a thing operating in the US and Europe. They are still releasing games for Sega and from themselves. They're an independent company, but they carry the Sega name, if that's what I imagine. I don't think Sega Japan has much, if any, control. They might have a stake in them, but yeah, I think they're a subsidiary, maybe. There is a Swing and Report show live with Sega-driven Sonic Yoda. You can check that out. Really fun conversation. They are pretty much the only surviving English-speaking Sega fan site out there now, besides us. So it was really fun to have like a meeting of the minds. Little fun fact, we cannot be in the same place at the same time, because if something were to happen to both of us, then there would be no more Sega news ever. You know, both sites would go down, and then it would just be Nintendo fans like covering Sega news. No one wants that. So here we go. Here's the big news. So back in November 2020, Sega sold their controlling stake in Sega in their arcade ownership division. That was big news at the time, but I feel like people forgot about it, because when the news dropped just this past week that Sega, or the controlling group company behind what was formerly Sega's arcade management division, was changing the Sega name itself within the company, that surprised me that people were shocked by that, because you have to imagine that at a certain point of time, a company is going to want to become their own entity without relying on the name of a company that only owned at the time 14.9% shares. So what had happened was, it was Genda, Sega Entertainment. Since November 2020, Sega had only owned 14.9% shares, which was not controlling, and basically they were bought or sold. Sega had sold the remaining shares back to Genda, meaning that there was absolutely no connection to Sega from there on out. And that's when they changed the name to Genda Gigo Entertainment. And Gigo is something you've seen before. There are Sega Gigo arcades out there. And so to me, it wasn't surprising. It was, I mean, it's sad, but it wasn't surprising. And we had gone quite some time with this as a reality. We just didn't know it, either because a lot of us don't live in Japan, or because we just thought, well, the name's on the building, the name's in the company, so it's still Sega, but it wasn't. So unfortunately, yes, all of the arcades that you see out there with Sega on the building, they will be changing their names to Gigo Arcades. The controlling company is now called Genda Gigo Entertainment, and that's that. I mean, they're going to retain the looks of the arcades. I believe they're still retaining the employees and their uniforms. They're probably going to change the little Sega on their uniform to Gigo. And I've heard people say, well, what's Gigo? Gigo doesn't have any, clout. But it's like, I think they want it to, and I don't blame them for that. I'm not going to be upset with the company for wanting to become their own thing. And who knows, 10, 15 years, we might be like nostalgic for Gigo arcades. I don't know. I also have to imagine, too, that Sega just wasn't into the arcade management anymore. I mean, clearly they sold a portion of it. So the question is, would you rather have Sega continuing to own it but selling it off, dismantling that side of their company, and then letting it die and rot? Or would you rather have them sell it to a company that wants to continue to maintain and management, even if it means we will be losing the Sega name? And to me, I would go with the latter, because the former means that would just be Sega letting something die on the vine. And then you have these like, oh, there's only 2 Sega arcades left, and they look like garbage pits. Like, like that could be a reality that we would have seen had they not sold the controlling shares. Now, it has been confirmed, though, that the Joypolis will continue to be owned and run by Sega. They were never part of the Genda deal because they are theme parks. So if you are going to Japan in the near future, or even probably in the distant future, you can visit a Sega amusement center. It's not going to be an arcade. It's not even going to be an amusement center. It's going to be a theme park, but you will get that full, all-encompassing Sega experience. You're probably not going to see a bunch of arcade games sitting out, but you will get to play exclusive games in those Joypolis facilities, and they are creating a sports facility too. It's called Joypolis Sports, was just announced recently, and within those places it's going to be more physical activities, but with a gamified twist. So, it's not all gloom and doom. There is some positivity there. Sega's not going away. They are still managing the theme parks. They are still creating arcade games, even though that division is much smaller now. As mentioned, Sega Amusements in the West is still a thing. So, to be quite honest, not much has changed since late November 2020. It's just now becoming more of a reality on the consumer-facing side. So, I've grieved. I've mourned 2 years ago. I'm ready for the future. And what is the future? Well, there is news that Sega has a studio launching called Sega Sapporo Studio, and it's going to be located in Sapporo City. They are hiring talent now, and it sounds like it's going to be an interesting endeavor. They're going to try to promote creative industries within that area, and I mean, it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing all that much from the get-go. They're going to be debugging games for other studios, but they are going to be programming their own game software. So I don't know if that means it's just going to be like a mobile division, or if we're actually going to be seeing console games or even arcade games from them. But the mere fact that this Genda news dropped with the Gigo Arcades, but then we also learned of a new Sega studio, a new Joypolis facility, and then the Sonic brand's going strong, and there's still a lot of positive things happening within Sega. So no need to cry. And then lastly, there are Sonic Movie 2 movie tie-in books. So if you like reading about Sonic movies in print, you can do that, and there are a ton of them coming. So you can check out that article on the site. It's got some Amazon affiliate links, throws a few bucks my way so that I can pay for the software and all the stuff that I use to do this sort of thing. So that just about does it. We talked about Sonic's Feet. We talked about Sega Arcades. So I think we fulfilled the prophecy of the YouTube thumbnail, and we have fed the YouTube gods. They look upon us with favor, and they bless us with a wonderful weekend. This is the new thing. We're going to pray as we close out the videos. So everyone, close your eyes and let the ocean breeze and ocean sounds wash over you as we conclude another Sega News Bits Live. And I will see you next week to talk about a Sega printer. So thank you for watching. Bow your heads and chant the words Sega. All right, bye.